everyone, you're listening to Just a Little Stitious podcast. I'm Jess.
And I'm her sister Megan, also known as the Queer Crypt on TikTok.
Whether you're driving, cleaning up the house, or just relaxing at home, we want you to hang out with us. And as Megan would say, get a little creeped out.
That's right. We'll be bringing you stories of paranormal news, extreme hauntings, cryptid sightings, urban legends, basically everything that goes bump in the night.
So if you're up for some eerie tales and a healthy dose of sisterly bullying,
then you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Hi. It's us.
Us again.
Here we are.
In our chairs.
Today's going to be an interesting episode.
We are going to get into reincarnation a little bit. I have a story about one of my children, which really freaked me out. And it is the reason that I believe now in reincarnation. I never believed in it before.
You didn't?
No. I didn't believe in it. I've always figured, like, when we die, we're just dead. Our consciousness dies with us. That's kind of what I...
Really?
Yeah. Our souls
but you
go
believed
wherever.
In ghosts.
Well, yeah, but like our souls, like they can roam. They go up, they go down, whatever.
Okay.
But our consciousness, that dies with us.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, like I always figured that that's it.
Right. Okay. This experience that Jess had, I mean, this is probably, I don't know if it's considered paranormal. I feel like it kind of is considered paranormal. And I feel like this is the biggest experience that you've experienced.
It is. Yeah. And it's sensitive to me because it's my child and it's hard to hear your child saying things like this. I did a lot of research about it after the fact and it's pretty interesting. Like it actually is like reincarnation. It's fascinating, but it's also sad. It can be sad. It can be scary.
Yeah.
But for like this, it's sad.
Yeah. And so also, I guess we should put a trigger warning out for this as well. There is going to be a sensitive subject we talk about, including harm to a child and homophobia. So just be warned that is going to be a discussion in today's episode.
I'll start off with what happened with my son. He just turned 6. This happened. He had just turned 4. I always have, and I have forever, my kids have very strict bedtime routines. It still is the same to this day as it was 2 years ago when this happened. Basically, one night, I put my kids to bed. I tuck them in and then they got like a little bit of TV time and they watch TV and then I go back in and I tuck them in and get them ready for bed. We, sing our songs, say our prayer, read a book, whatever we're going to do. That night, I had just went in and shut the TV off, tucked them in, and I came back out. I quickly loaded the dishwasher. I had just sat down. Like I was just about to start a show. And I knew my kids weren't sleeping yet. Like they'll lay there and talk to one another because my 2 boys, my now 6-year-old and my 8-year-old, they share a room and they did back then. So I knew they weren't sleeping. But my son, my 6-year-old, or at the time 4-year-old, he comes running out of his room, tears just streaming from his face. He runs straight to the living room window. He's like hysterically crying. And I'm like, what happened? Like, what's wrong? I figured they got into a fight.
That would be my assumption.
But he just starts screaming. He's like, they're coming. I was like, what? And then he goes, my parents, my bad parents, they're coming. They're going to hurt me. They're coming. And he's hysterical. He's crying. And I'm like, trying to get him to come to me to comfort him. He won't. He will not leave that window. He's looking down the sidewalk. He will not leave the window. He just keeps screaming over and over that they're coming to get him. While this is just freshly happening, my husband comes home from work. He opens the door like right as this is going on and he's just standing there. He's never seen him like this. And he's just like, what is going on?
Right.
I'm trying to calm my son down. So I get him finally over to me. I'm holding his hands and I'm like, take deep breaths, calm down. What's going on? You're safe. Like, I love you. Your dad loves you. Your brothers and your sister love you. You're okay. He was like, my parents from a long, long time ago, my old parents, they were mean to me. This same evening, he told me that they pushed him through a window. They lived in this house that was like in the woods and they would run after him in the woods. That was the gist of it for that night. I calmed him down. My husband also helped calming him down. I tucked him in. I sat there with him for a little bit. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next morning, I called you.
Yeah.
Told you about it. And then I started looking things up, which is how I found out that researchers have found that some kids between the ages of 2 and 5 can remember their past lives. Generally, like they'll turn 5, they'll start school, and now their brain is filled with so much information that they kind of forget.
Right.
So these bad parents was like a hot topic of discussion with him for like a little bit.
Yeah.
Like it was almost like that night, it just
Came-
snapped
Yeah.
in his brain, and
Yeah.
he remembered all this stuff. And for a while he talked about it a lot.
Right.
He told me that they would tell him that they don't love him, that they would kill him. Oh, and he told me that they had stabbed him.
Right.
Also,
Mhm.
he told me that they would chase him through the woods and they would be calling him a derogatory term
Mhm.
for a gay person.
Yeah.
Starts with an F.
Yeah.
I won't say it. I remember when I heard him say that word, my whole body clenched.
Mhm.
How do you even know that word? And then the whole thing was talking about the stabbing. And
Mhm.
I was like, for me, that's that's crazy.
Mhm.
Like my kids had never heard that from anywhere else. That's pretty much the gist of what he told me.
Yeah.
It's emotional. He would bring up his bad parents, his old bad parents. He said they were very old. I'm like, maybe I should have asked him more about it. But at the time, I was like, I don't want to scare him. I don't even know if I want to know the answers to the things that I have questions about.
Yeah, you don't want to traumatize him further.
Exactly. So I never said anything to him about it, really. If it came up, like all I ever said was, you're safe.
Yeah.
You're okay. I love you. Dad loves you. Like, you're going to be okay, type of thing. But it was intense for several months. And then he started school, and that was it. Like, that was
Until recently.
until recently. My he's at 6, he's in kindergarten right now, and he hasn't spoke about this until just like a week ago. I was going through photos on my phone and he went like, do you have pictures of my old parents? And I'm like, what the hell? Like, I haven't heard anything about this in so long, but I just nipped it in the butt. I'm like, no, I don't know if that's the right thing to do. It feels like the right thing for me to do. And my son, he's very sensitive.
Yeah.
He's very emotional in all the best ways too. He's a
sweetheart.
Yeah, he's very in tune to his emotions and other people's emotions. When this would come up before he started school, it was horrible. Like you can like looking in his face.
Yeah.
I could just see that he was hurting, and I lost so much sleep over this. I thought about it a lot. It broke my heart because this is my child. I love him so much. I would do anything for my kids. And to think by what he's said, maybe he was a little gay boy in a past life, right? And he was maybe killed by his parents for it.
Yeah.
And that breaks my
I know.
heart. It's so hard to even imagine that somebody could do that to a kid like that. And it's my kid.
I know how I felt when you told me about it, and I felt like heartbroken. Just thinking of him having those memories, it is so strange and random that it's like I believe it. Like, yeah, you know, like I
do too.
Believe this happened to him in a previous life.
It just it wouldn't make sense otherwise.
Also, the fact that it's not just him saying, "Oh, a bad man," like my parents. That's a really specific thought to have.
Exactly. And we have a very loving home. We have a home that's filled with affection and love and silliness constantly. Like, we are very loving in my home. And so when he said that, I was like, it freaked me out.
Yeah.
It really did. And it really upset me. It really did. And to hear all the things that he said, like, it just absolutely broke my heart. It's hard to hear a little kid saying that his past life was so terrible. Like, even though he's not saying his past life, I know that that's what he's talking about. And it's really hard to hear that and to accept that that was his reality at one point. The thing is with this, I mean, anyone could say like, well, he's just heard this stuff.
Yeah.
No.
No,
not at all. Like,
not in our family.
He was 4 at the time. YouTube was not a thing yet for my kids.
Yeah.
They didn't know anything about stabbing.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, like, they would have never heard anything like that. This F word, I don't speak. They've never heard that from.
No, and
they don't hear that.
No. And like, just to reiterate, if you didn't see our last episode, like Jess, her gay sister, she's stuck up for me since she was 8 years old.
Yeah.
Against her own bullies, against whoever was homophobic, transphobic, racist.
Yeah.
Any of the ISTs or the obics, the bics.
Yes, absolutely.
That is not.
That word makes me so uncomfortable.
Yeah, me too.
Like, I don't talk like that. And anyone who does, they're not around my children.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ever, ever, ever. My 2 older kids, they have their biological dad is not my husband. And he also does not talk like that.
Yeah, no.
Him being with me, we were together for 5 years.
Yeah.
Him being with me, he had a lot of respect for the gay community.
He was one of those guys that would go to the gay bar with us and have a blast. He never felt uncomfortable or...
I know he does not say that word or any kind of slur around my children.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact. I trust that 100%. He wants them to be good too. We're on the same page with how we're raising these kids.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's nobody in my circle that speaks that way.
No.
Because I think it's a disgusting, disgusting word. Anyone who even says that, immediately respect gone from me.
Same.
I don't like you.
It gives me a pit in my stomach to hear that word. People don't understand the weight of their words.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a hard topic, but there are definitely people, not people I'm very close to, but there are people that I have been close to or who are family or whatever have used that word. And it's like a joke to them, but there's obviously ignorance there. And it's the same with like racial slurs and the grief and the trauma that's attached to that.
Yeah. I am a hunter. My kids, growing up, they know about shooting animals, basically. I mean, so there's that. Like, they know about hunting.
Right.
But I've never talked to them about, like, gutting an animal, for example. Sorry. But, like, seriously, nothing with knives. Like, I don't, it's not a thing that even comes up. I tell them about a time I shot a goose or a partridge. That's it.
It makes me so curious as to, I mean, I'm traumatized from things that have happened in this life.
Yeah.
Could I also be traumatized by things that I don't know happened to? Like, it's a very interesting thought question. What do we bring with us? Do we bring baggage with us, or does it just go away once we turn 5 and forget, you know?
Well, I'm not going to read the story quite yet, but there is a story that I found about this boy who was 5. He was being researched by people at the University of Virginia, I believe. And there's this one story which I have written down that I will read to you. And he was 5 when this came up in 2015. He was 10 years old and he still remembered.
Oh, wow.
But then again, he had been being researched for a while.
Right. So he would have
talking about it a lot.
Yeah.
So like that could be it. Maybe if I would have kept asking my son questions, maybe he would still talk about it in depth and he would remember more. They think that lots of children remember their past lives, but parents often dismiss it.
Which, like, obviously with your case and your son, the whole scenario that he explained was so random and so upsetting that it's something that, you know, he didn't pick up from watching a cartoon but other people, if their kids didn't have maybe this traumatic past life and they're just talking, their parents are probably like, what is this nonsense? They're playing an imaginary game.
Exactly. So yeah, a lot of times it's dismissed, and these are cases that we'll never hear of because they'll forget. And like the thing is, the kids around, they say between 2 and 5 because it's like the sweet spot. There's not as many clouds fogging their brain right now, and they can talk. So they say that they can kind of pull those memories out because there's not much
in there yet. They don't have that many memories yet.
Exactly. So they're right at that sweet spot right there. And then they start school and now they're retaining all this new information and it kind of just gets pushed to the back or pushed right out. I don't know.
Yeah.
I did some research. I watched this podcast. I'll make sure that the link to the podcast is there. And I learned a lot of really interesting things. I started doing all this research because I want to know more. I want to understand it better. I still don't know as much as I would like to. The thing is your consciousness, that's you. That's your memories. It's your personality. That's who you are.
Right.
And you can't see it. There's no saying what happens to it when you're gone. The thought is that realistically, it could recycle itself. And there's this analogy, it's a whirlpool analogy that I read that kind of
encompasses
the consciousness and the reincarnation. It kind of explains it a bit. I got to put my glasses on. Some of this stuff, like, I have to read it straight down because some of it's, quote, I have ADHD. I can't remember it. This is the whirlpool analogy. We're all whirlpools in a stream of consciousness. What happens when a whirlpool dies? The water flows back into the broader stream, transitioning into a new form. It's still water. It's just not what it used to be. So when the body dies, consciousness transitions into a new state. After water is transferred into a regular state again, couldn't it form a new whirlpool in theory? The water is just recycled. So couldn't consciousness enter a new body, as in reincarnation?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, me too. I that was actually one of the first things they said on the podcast that I listened to. And I was like, I like that analogy because it makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
In my mind.
Absolutely.
We don't know. There's research going on even still with children who remember things like this, but we don't know. But I will say some of the details that are given with the kids and the researchers, they're so vivid and so detailed that some of these cases, they're actually able to go back in medical records, just in history, and confirm it.
That's crazy.
And I'm talking, keep in mind, these are kids between the ages of 2 and 5.
Right.
Some of this stuff, hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
One of the stories that I am going to tell you, it's crazy. Yeah, it is.
Speaking of which, if you could find out that you are someone in history, who would you hope it to be?
Oh, the guys who made the airplane, the Wright brothers. Someone who did something like that's cool still to this day.
Like Amelia Earhart.
That's the name I was trying to think of in my head.
She was born in Atchison, Kansas, which is
that's funny.
The same from our last episode.
Story. Yeah, that is funny. They say an individual person is a manifestation of the whirlpool, and that manifestation can take the form of memories and personality, but also physical traits. So in the recycling of the whirlpool, it seems certain physical traits can be transferred too.
That's interesting.
Right?
Yeah, it'd be so fascinating. Obviously, like you said, you don't even know if you want to know all the details, but it would be so fascinating to have your child be like, yeah, this is who I was, and to see that old picture of them.
Yeah, it would be. Reincarnation is not something that I believed in for a long time until recently. I always believed in telepathy. Do you believe in telepathy?
I think I do. I think it's something you have to practice.
Yeah. But like,
telepathy.
If you do believe in telepathy, then you would probably believe that consciousness isn't just stuck in our heads.
Right.
Like, you have to.
Right. Yeah. Because you can project it.
Right. And then like the other thing is like, why should your consciousness disappear when your body dies? You know, we were talking in our last episode about that thing that came out of your mouth. But like, say it's an orb of energy. Right. Say you die and your consciousness is just like that. It comes out of your body. Where does it go? We don't know where it goes.
No, we don't.
But that's why all the research is being done about reincarnation, because it's believed that you are recycled.
Right.
Which like
so
your consciousness is recycled. Potentially. You could be new.
So it's really interesting. Alex LeMay, who's a paranormal investigator, and she was on Living for the Dead, like the paranormal investigation show, queer paranormal investigation show. It was amazing. Beautiful. She was talking about her father, who passed away, unfortunately. She had a very vivid dream about him where he was telling her that, I might not word it exactly correctly, but essentially that when you die, you're not just like one thing. You're not in just one place. You're everywhere. You're infinite. Yeah. And so there's parts of you that are watching over people. There could be parts of you that are like your energy is stuck somewhere because maybe something traumatic happened there. Part of you might be living a new life. Part of you might be in the past. Like it's just, it's a really interesting theory. I don't know. I just think there could be something to that. Speaking of all this though, I have one more question for you. Where in your body do you live?
Everywhere. Mostly in my vagina, probably.
Okay. That is literally not an answer I've ever gotten from anyone.
Really? Probably.
Okay, I feel like I live here in my chest. People usually either say their head or their chest. You're the first to tell me the vagina, but you know.
I like to keep it fresh.
She likes to keep it spicy. Now that we've heard Jess's story about her child and reincarnation, how that affected her and her family, she's going to tell us some stories about these people? Is it about these people who are being researched?
Yes, 2 stories of people who were researched. So this story is about a 5-year-old boy. His name is Ryan. He's the one that I was saying before. At 10 years old, he still remembered this. Ryan's 5 years old, and he's talking a lot about his life in Hollywood. He's crying. He's begging his mom to take him back home. He wants to go back home to Hollywood. Very specific place. That's where he wants to go. So his mom decided to go get some books from the library about Hollywood, like old books, and they would go through the pictures and stuff together. They're looking through this book and he stopped her and he's like, "Hey, Mom, that's George." And George was a very famous actor from back in the day. The specific picture was from a movie, an old movie. It's called Night After Night. So he pointed him out and he's like, "That's George. We did a picture together."
What?
And
his name was obviously actually George.
Yeah. So then they're looking and then he stops her again. He goes, "Mom, look, Mom, that's me. I found me." After some research, the man, George, his name is George Raft. Like I said, he was a famous actor back in the day. And he was, in fact, in the movie Night After Night. And the person that Ryan pointed to saying it was him was an extra in the movie. He had no lines. And then with the help of a Hollywood archivist, they found out his name is Marty Martin. I have a picture of him.
You'll see.
Here it is.
If you're not watching the video, we'll give you a link to the photo.
Marty Martin was once in a movie in 1932. He was an extra in Night After Night.
Interesting.
Which was the movie. Ryan said that he danced in New York. Marty Martin danced on Broadway.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did.
That's so cool. Sorry, right off the bat here, though, this is a better life to remember so far.
Way better.
Sounds like.
Way better. Ryan said that he worked for a agency. Marty Martin started a super successful talent agency. Ryan said that he saw the world from big ships and he went to Paris. Marty Martin and his wife went to Europe on the Queen Marian, which is a big ship. And there is a photo of them in Paris.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately, I couldn't find the photo.
Yeah.
I tried really hard. Ryan said his street address had either a mount or rock in it. Marty Martin's street was North Roxbury. Ryan, he said that he didn't understand why God let him live to 61 and then sent him back to be a baby again. So Marty Martin's death certificate said that he was 59. But they were able to track down his living daughter and stepdaughter, and they confirmed that he actually was 61 when he died, and they were able to prove it with other certificates.
Wow.
As well. What they did find doing research, and I don't know every statement that Ryan made, but over 50 of the statements that he made turned out to be accurate for Marty Martin's life.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is, and again, this is something that just seems so random for a 5-year-old to be like, "Yeah, I danced in Hollywood." Huh?
Yeah.
Like, unless your parents are like watching musicals and listening to show tunes 24/7, that seems pretty fucking random to me.
Yep, I know. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I thought that one was very interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
I have another one.
Okay.
It's a bit more, hurts the heart just a little bit. So this next one is about a boy named James. This started right around his 2nd birthday. He started having nightmares and he was kicking and screaming in his sleep. He was saying, "Airplane crashed, on fire, little man can't get out." His aunt said that while he was having these nightmares, it looked like he was fighting for his life.
Oh, that's sad. How old was he, sorry?
He was 2, around
Holy
2 when this
schnitzel.
happened.
Okay.
During the day, he would play with a lot of toy airplanes and he would start saying that they were on fire and he would crash them nose first into the coffee table.
Interesting.
And he looked traumatized while this would be happening.
Wow. Okay.
James said that he was a pilot and that his plane crashed and was on fire and shot down by the Japanese.
What? At 2?
At 2. I'm like,
that is crazy.
Yeah, I know. Just for those of you who know, I'm a pretty big World War buff. I enjoy it. No, I don't enjoy it. Never mind. Cut that out. I never mind. I'm not even going to say it.
No.
I enjoy the war.
You enjoy history, and obviously, like, the history has shaped also your compassion. I mean, World War II was fucked up.
Dad attempted to read me storybooks at one point when I was young to tuck me in because mom used to do it. And he tried once. He read me a book about airplanes from the World War.
Oh,
That
God.
was what he would write.
Well,
but
that
he read
definitely
that to me.
make me fall asleep.
It was fascinating. So anyway, James said that he flew an airplane that was developed in World War II, and it's called Corsair.
Okay.
They had asked him while they were talking with him, like, who else was there during this time of his life? And he said Jack Larson, which remember that name because we'll get to it. Okay. When James was about 2.5, they started showing him photos, and he pointed at this one photo and said, that is the spot. That's where his plane crashed. That's where it happened. It turned out that one and only one pilot was killed flying a Corsair, a young man named James Huston, which is funny because the boy's name
Is
in his front
James.
life is James,
Huh.
which is interesting.
That is.
So James Huston, his plane was shot down and it crashed exactly the way that little James said that it did. It was
Wow.
shot in the engine, ended up on fire, and it went nose down into the ocean and very quickly sank.
Oh,
And
that'd be so scary.
that is how he died. So doing more research, there was another pilot who was flying a plane next to James Huston's when it was shot down and he died. That pilot's name was Jack Larson.
What the fuck?
Yeah. These things,
Yeah.
like to be 2.5, saying all this stuff, I fully believe, I have full confidence that this kid is truly remembering his past life because this stuff is so specific.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know for sure, but this seems like a specific event that hasn't been on TV or, you know, like I've never heard of Jack Larson. I've never seen a show or a movie about this specific incident. We've seen lots of different shows and stuff. It doesn't seem like this came from like some kind of media where he would have picked this up. I mean, it would be weird to do it.
He wasn't, James Huston wasn't a famous pilot by the sounds of it.
Right.
I wasn't able to find any pictures of him. I'm going to keep trying to find a photo.
If she finds it, here it is.
Yeah.
This story with James it's sad.
Yeah.
But at least he was an adult, you know?
Yes.
With your son, it's like,
well, adult-ish, because in World War II, 18, you're going to war.
Right. Yeah, true. But with your son, it seems like he was a lot younger.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know a lot about reincarnation. Like, I find it fascinating, but it's just not something I've researched that much. So what else did you kind of find out about reincarnation while you're doing the research?
Some kids who have birthmarks and deformalities, they find that they actually match, in some cases, how these children claim to have died in a past life.
Oh, wow.
Which is interesting. And like, there was one child who claimed to have been shot, and he claimed to have been like a gunshot victim.
Right.
And he had birthmarks that looked like entrance and exit wounds from a gun. But like the thing is with that too, is like you could have a birthmark here and then a birthmark here, or parallel birthmarks, or you know what, because they can go anywhere inside, and then bullet could go in here and shoot up my head, like, well, you know, up higher by my neck even.
Right. Okay.
But
yeah, depending on the
it'll
angle.
travel in your body if it hits something sometimes, and the course will change. So oftentimes it's not just straight in, straight out.
Ugh, okay.
There's a child who claims to have been shot by a shotgun blast in their past life. This child is born with an underdeveloped right side of his face, and he had a nub for an ear.
Okay.
And he says he was shot by a shotgun, which would make sense.
Wow. That's crazy.
I know.
Maybe I had a stroke in my past life, and that's why I talk weird with my mouth.
Your mouth only half moved.
Yeah.
And I will say, I told my son, I told him to take his shirt off.
Yeah.
And I was like just looking everywhere on his body for a birthmark.
Right.
Because you don't always notice them. Like I have a few birthmarks, and
me too.
They're hard to see. Okay. It's like this big. None of your business. But like he does have one on his back. He does have a birthmark, but it's like, it's very small. It doesn't really look like anything. But I was really looking because I'm like, is there going to be a stab wound on you somewhere?
Right.
But I think that kind of thing is so fascinating.
Yeah.
And yeah, like with the physical traits, maybe you did have a stroke in your past life and that's how you died. And that's why only half of her mouth moves in her videos.
Sometimes. To give you some context, because that's going to be in the bloopers of one of our past episodes. I didn't put it in the episode. But when Jess and I were recording one day, she was like, oh, I noticed something. And I was like, what? And she's like, well, I'm not going to say it. I'm like, well, now you have to, you fucking bitch. So anyways, She told me.
I didn't want to hurt her feelings. Tell her, like, your mouth is fucked up. In case she didn't know already.
Yeah. She's like, I noticed in some of your videos that like half of your mouth moves differently than the other half. I was like, yeah, I've literally had people comment on my videos being like, did you have a stroke? Now it's a response. Yeah.
Dicks.
If you said that,
No one
maybe
can
I
make
did.
fun of her
Maybe
except me.
Maybe I did in my past life. Now, how do you feel about that? Now that it's true and you're really mean.
There's still more that I want to research and learn and stuff. This is just all that my ADHD brain could take.
Well, it's a good start, and we'll definitely have more episodes on this at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and there's still so much to learn and to talk about. I wanted to base most of it around my son's story, these two stories that I read because they're super interesting, and some of the information that I learned from the podcast that I listened to.
Well, to wrap this episode up, I'm going to tell you a story. This story was reported to an investigator who recently shared it. I will add the link. And I thought it was really interesting.
Okay.
And it's about a UFO sighting.
Oh, love aliens.
So it's just been reported, but it happened in 1972.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it was a woman named Holly. She lived near Holy Hill in Wisconsin. She was at her parents' with her husband.
Okay.
It sounds like they were either sleeping there or maybe they were living there at the time. It was in the rural countryside, like no street lights.
Right.
It's farms.
Yeah.
It was 11:45 at night, and her and her husband were watching TV. Her parents were asleep. I will also mention this because it gets included later. It had snowed about a foot that night. They had a big panoramic window. They could see the woods, hills, a large pond. There was 6 acres of land, and they could see a distant farmer's field. It was pitch black that night. It was cloudy. Couldn't see the moon, the stars. It was very dark.
Right.
All of a sudden, she's startled because she sees this bright light outside. She said it looked like it was noon outside. It's 11:45 at night.
Yeah, weird.
She even looked at the clock to reassure herself that it's not sunrise. Like,
Yeah.
have I been
Didn't
sitting
just
here all
sleep the
night
day
watching?
away.
Yeah. Have I been sitting here all night watching TV? Like, no.
Right.
It's 11:45 p.m. She said their home didn't have outside lights, so she knew it wasn't that.
Mm-hmm.
Like she said, it was cloudy.
Yeah.
You couldn't see the moon. Even if you could see the moon, they did research that it wasn't a full moon or anything that would have been particularly bright on that evening.
Okay.
And again, it's so bright. There's no shadows. Like it looks like it's noon outside. But all of a sudden, the light switches to red. Ugh, I would literally shit my pants.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, like
blood red.
she doesn't say blood red. She
Blood
just says
red
red. She just says red. But that would be terrifying.
That red, I don't associate the color red with anything good.
No, me either.
Bad color red.
I don't like that color.
Hell, stop signs, stop lights, all things that I hate.
Blood.
I don't mind blood. I mean, like, I don't want to drink it, but like, if you do, though, that's fine. And my strange addictions, there's someone that does.
I don't particularly
She drinks
find...
pig's blood, though.
Okay.
It was a good episode. I enjoyed it.
Okay, we're going to move on from this.
Sorry.
But red, we don't like it.
Hate it. It does look good on me, though.
Me too. Such a heartbreak. I don't really like it.
I only own one red thing, but it looks great on me.
A minute or more later, the light turns to a bluish green tinge.
Okay.
So we got multicolored lights.
Weird. Fancy.
This isn't just any run-of-the-mill UFO. They've got...
It's like a disco ship.
Yeah. This is like the Mercedes-Benz of UFOs.
It's like the Cadillac of UFOs.
After a little while, the light turns back to white and it looks like it's noon again. And Holly watched for 10 minutes as the light kind of dimmed and moved over to the other farmer's field.
Oh, that's freaky.
The next day, she calls the Milwaukee Journal's weatherman to find out what the weather was, the airport tower, the Navy office.
Wow.
She's trying to figure out what it was.
Yeah.
And there's no answers.
Jesus.
She also was trying to find reports of other people saying that they saw these lights. Nothing.
Wow. And that's interesting because it is in like farmers' fields and it's so dark. You'd be able to see that from a distance.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's interesting that nobody else, because 11:45 at night.
It's not that late, but if it is majority farmers,
yeah, they're
they are in bed by then.
Yeah,
typically.
That's true.
So they talk about this instance that she experienced, and she's asked if she can remember anything else strange that happened that night. And this is what I find the most compelling about this story.
Okay.
There were a few things. She went to go and open the front door because she wanted to go look outside and see if she could see anything.
Yeah.
And She was struggling because there was a foot of snow.
Okay.
Her husband was on the couch. She wanted him to come help her open the door.
Yeah.
And the way she described it, was completely disinterested in the light thing that was going on.
Weird.
She said specifically, he just sat there like a dummy, not saying anything, expressionless, not even budging to look at the lights at the window with me when I asked. And that surprised her. She thought it was weird. Then she goes upstairs to wake up her parents.
Mm-hmm.
She can't wake them up. Yeah, she said her mom was a super light sleeper. She was even trying to shake them awake.
Oh my God.
They weren't waking up. Yeah.
I would assume they're dead.
Yeah, I would probably assume the same thing. She said it's very strange to be shaking someone and talking in their ear.
Literally.
And they're not waking up.
Yeah.
When she goes downstairs, her husband asks her where she's been for so long. And she said she was only up there for a few minutes. So she's like, what do you mean?
Right.
And then he just remains silent and in this eerie state.
Weird.
She didn't look at the time then because she was like, I was just gone for a few minutes. But looking back now, she wishes she would have.
Well, no kidding.
Because maybe there was lost time. The next day, her husband would not discuss the lights with her or her parents.
I'd be so pissed.
Yeah.
I'd be like, bitch, you're trying to make me look like a liar?
Yeah. That's so true.
Like, fuck you.
But it's...
Why was he like in a trance?
Yeah. Why was he in such a catatonic state?
Because I read that aliens can do that. Like,
yeah.
I mean, and that's why all those conspiracy theorists, they wear the thing to keep them from... That's why they do it, to keep them from reading their thoughts. Keep them from... We should have put those on while we told this story.
I love that idea.
Next time.
Catch us in a future episode wearing tinfoil hats.
Yes.
That reminds me of Signs. Such a good movie.
I was just thinking.
Such a classic.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Man, he's one of my crushes.
He is pretty good looking for a man.
If you're watching this. Sorry, Arthur.
So yeah, he wouldn't talk about it. And her husband was also in the Marine Corps. He was sent to Vietnam a few days later. And 6 months later, he was killed, unfortunately. So they never got to talk about it. She kind of put it out of her mind for obviously decades because she's just bringing it up now. Because she didn't have an explanation. And people, when she had brought it up, had laughed at her.
Well, yeah. I mean, people would probably think it crazy or dreaming or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like so many people have had experiences at this point. It's like, how do you even, I don't know.
I swear I've seen
some weird shit.
I swear I have.
Anyway, she feels lucky that she got to see the site. I mean, I don't know if maybe she was abducted.
Well, yeah, because it makes me wonder, like, why is she the only one in the house that's actually acknowledging it, not in some kind of a weird trance?
Right.
Because
and then her husband being like, where were you gone for so long?
Yeah, it makes me wonder, like...
Did she get abducted? I mean, I feel like a lot of people who claim they have been abducted only have bits and pieces. Like, they don't remember most of it. So I just thought that was a really interesting one.
I think that is really interesting. I believe in aliens.
Me too.
Hardcore. They're real. My favorite are, going back to Signs, the tall grays.
Yeah, I love the tall grays.
Coolest ones. My favorite part is when he's, when he's walking through that bush and Joaquin Phoenix, he's watching it on a VHS tape. And it's like, move, kids, vámonos, ándale.
Yeah.
As if they can hear it. It's just my favorite part. And then you see the thing. And I will say that traumatized me as a child.
Did it?
That I was a child when I saw that movie.
I love that. I kind of want to rewatch that movie now.
All M. Night Shyamalan movies.
I love his movies. Anyway, so what we've learned today, obviously, is that Jessica lives in her vagina and I live in my heart. So thank you for listening. Send us your stories. And especially, I would love to hear people who have had their kids tell them things about their past lives.
Or if you remember things.
Yeah.
Or like even your parents remember you talking about, anything. Yeah. Any stories. I'm interested to hear if anyone else has anything as depressing as my child. Because I know there's lots.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it can be happy too.
Yeah. That's fine.
So send any paranormal stories
or UFO sightings,
cryptid sightings,
Bigfoot
ghost stories,
sightings.
You name it. Send it to justalittlestitiouspod@gmail.com. Goodbye. I'm going to keep that pause in there. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Just a Little Stitious.
We hope you had just as much fun getting creeped out as we did.
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave us a review if you would be so kind.
And be sure to follow The Queer Crypt on YouTube if you want to watch us in video form.
We'd also love to hear from you. Send your eerie encounters to justalittlestitiouspod@gmail.com.
And remember, we're not superstitious.
We're just a little stitious.